All right, we're live. Welcome anyone joining from the internet, and welcome Boris.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. It'll
Yeah,
be my first time doing one of these, so hopefully it goes well.
yeah, I'm excited. Here for everyone, I just want to share this screenshot of the tweet that brought us together for this chat. We knew each other from before, but this is the tweet Boris sent, like complaining about, well, not complaining, reporting a Townie bug, and I was like, I didn't exactly know what was going on. But then Boris explained more about his project and how he tried like a bunch of different code gen AIs, and that's kind of nerd sniped me into, oh, okay, we gotta do a live stream and see if Townie can do this and where it falls down. So that's what we're doing right now. Wednesday the 30th at 11 a.m. Here we are.
Yep. Twitter brings people together, right? Yeah.
Cool. So maybe tell us a bit about yourself, and then tell us a bit about what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So I guess I was a CEO of a company for a while. I sold it a few years back. I work with the acquirer now. And in my last company, one of the products that we had built was this Markdown extension for Confluence, right? And the basic premise was you have a Confluence page, you want Markdown to appear in the middle of it. You want to, pull that from GitHub or GitLab, or maybe you just want to drop inline Markdown, whatever, right? It started actually, I was working at Atlassian, they dropped Markdown support, and I built this as like an internal hackathon thing. And like years later, this now has tens of thousands of customers with millions of end users, right? Like it's one of those like, oops, success stories. And I really have been like recently thinking about what I want to do next, and et cetera. And I keep going to this idea of like documents in context. And in particular, like the reason why Markdown made sense to embed into Confluence was that whether it was Markdown or if you, and as the app expanded, right, we started allowing you to embed mermaid diagrams or GraphViz or, Swagger docs or whatever. And this concept of embedding was one of you write text, which is like the context and the knowledge, and then you enrich it by putting something else in the middle of it, right? And also reducing kind of duplication of knowledge, right? So if you have a README in one place, you only update it in one place, you have it everywhere else. And so one of the things I've been thinking about recently is like I've been doing some writing, and I'm like writing. The tools for writing are not amazing. Like you write in Google Docs and then you copy paste into Ghost, and all your formatting is gone, and there's not a consistent anything. And so I was like, oh, obviously this is a engineering problem, and what if we come up with a new way of storing data? And I was like, I'm not smart enough to come up with a new way of storing data, but I was like, what if I extend Markdown? And so the current idea is if you take code blocks, fenced code blocks in Markdown, the first line where people will typically put the language, that's called an info string. The info string is a completely open spec. It basically says you can put whatever you want there and you can do whatever you want with it. Like the parser will understand it, and then the renderer can decide what it wants in the spec. And I was like, okay, what if I overload this to basically allow parameterized configuration of content in Markdown files? So simple way of imagining it is you type up Markdown, you put a code block, and then as like instead of a language, you put iframe, right? And then you put a URL, and then the renderer would just iframe whatever it wants into the middle of that Markdown file, right? But like that's like a really trivial example, but it could be anything. And what I started playing with these AI tools was, hey, can I take an open source text editor like Lexical or something, and can I just start to get it to spin up a basic text editor with out of the box Markdown functionality? And there's a lot of editors. There's like Lexical, Prose Mirror, Code Mirror, Scribe, Quip. I don't know. There's a bunch of these open source editors, and I tried all of them with all of these different tools, and all of them fell apart as the tweets showed, and that's what brings us here.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's cool. The project that you're talking about, I've seen like people work on things like this in a lot of different guises, like content and then embeddings. So like even Notion, you can like embed things, or like anytime you paste anything in Notion, it's like, do you want a preview link? Do you want to embed? And and what's another, like Astro is an interesting take on this. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen Astro marked like MDX is like an interesting take on this. It's like HTML and Markdown combined together. What's another?
Interesting.
Oh,
I haven't looked at MDX, but I will after the call.
yeah, here. Oh, sorry. I was going to show you had it up on your screen, so I was going to
Yeah.
show
Oh, here.
Markdown. Yeah, it's a cool take on this problem. Another interesting take on this problem, if you want to just because you have your browser up here, you could go to Observable HQ.
Yeah, observable. I know. Let's see, observable HQ.
Yeah, my co-founder Tom was one of the Observable folks, and they have this like concept of Markdown and like really taking advantage of different kinds of code blocks.
Yep. Yeah. So that's actually very similar, kind of to where I was going. But my idea was like very similar to this, except that I was thinking of it more as an open standard where we think of it in the ethos of progressive enhancement, right? So you can just read the normal Markdown file and get whatever you can out of it, right? And then, that depending upon the client you use, it would continue to kind of grow and grow and grow in terms of like the enhancement that you see, right? So in the example of like observable, right, like the GIF we're seeing or the video, I don't know what that is, like in the same way here, when you look at this, you're like, it's whatever chart they're creating, right, using their JS approach. But what if the same thing was done with all of the like standard, what I would call like text to something tools, right? So you could have
Mermaid,
like Mermaid, GraphViz, like all of these tools, they're quite standard.
I guess another good example of this would be GitHub. Like GitHub, you could put Mermaid documents in, like in a GitHub issue comment. You could do
exactly.
I think you could just do So maybe that's your closest inspiration.
They launched theirs, GitHub Mermaid, in 2022.
Zoom in a little bit. Okay, no, that's good.
There we go. So yeah, they launched this in 2022, and this is exactly kind of the idea, right? Where like you can, the best case scenario is you stick as close to that ethos of Mermaid as of Markdown as possible, where things should be, as human readable as possible, right? So that's why I think like Mermaid is such a great example, because even if you don't have this chart on the left, and even if you don't know, the Mermaid syntax, just by looking at this thing on the right, you can probably figure out roughly that like, hey, what, like you can understand directionally what all of this means. And so I think that's just a really powerful concept. And again, it's like I'm kind of stuck on this ethos of like progressive enhancement. I'm trying to write a blog post about this right now, and it's kind of in the there's that meme of Charlie from It's Sunny in Philadelphia with all the red strings, and he looks insane. That's that's the mode which my draft is in. So I haven't figured out the exact vocabulary for this, but
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So here, if you stay in this tab for a second, I just wanted to point out what I think is like the first major decision point for us on this project, which is if we want to go like this editor you see here, where it's like there's a editing code view and then there's a preview view. So in GitHub, it's like a tab thing, but we could do side by side code editor and then render preview. So that's what I'm most familiar with. And that's easiest. What you reached out about is like lexical, which is more about like rich text.
What you get, yeah.
It's like combined WYSIWYG, and that's more like Notion.
Yep. I think let's keep it simpler. Let's do the simpler approach of just doing side by side for now. I think there's probably something in the Sonnet training data that's just not updated with the latest versions of the various editor like the editors are probably just releasing so quickly that the APIs are not.
Maybe. I can say that the original bug that you reported about, like Townie just keeps the bug you had was that like Townie keeps like leaving stuff out. That actually wasn't the like root cause of it. Like that was the bug that was being true. The root cause of the bug was that I don't know if you've been seeing me tweet about how the Claude 3.5 Sonnet new has been doing this like this weird bug for us where it doesn't want to write the whole code. It just like wants to tell you what changed.
Yep.
And we think that was the root cause of this issue. So
It's
we
not.
reverted to.
I've heard the same thing from others also, actually.
Yeah. So we finally got some confirmation in the database that it's happening, and I got a really good repro, and I sent it over to a friend at Anthropic. So I'm excited to see what comes back. But in the meantime, we reverted.
Yeah, it's great to have that personal escalation path.
Well, I got it just because I tweeted. He like reached out on DMs after I complained loudly enough.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. So I think going back to your question, yeah, let's just keep it super simple, right? Like let's just have a text input box that renders, mermaid, markdown on the side, and then from there, I think Townie will be able to do that pretty easily.
Cool.
And then maybe we can try and get some kind of whatever renderer we use for mermaid. Maybe we can try and get it to build a extension to it, which will support, I don't know, we can say like an iframe or something. So let's start super simple. Please build an input box on the left where I can type plain text, which will be markdown on the right half of the screen. Please render that markdown. Please use a library to render the markdown that supports extensions or plugins that we can add on later. Any advice here? Does that sound good?
That looks good. And we can start there. I talked to my co-founder Tom, who used to work at Observable and is like an expert on these kind of things. And he gave, why don't you just hit it off so it's running, and then in the meantime, if I can just describe his advice.
Yep.
Okay, nice. He recommended the React Markdown library, which Townie already knew about. Fantastic. And then GitHub flavored Markdown is also really a good choice. Could it already be done? That's wild. Can you click on the code tab? Oh,
no, it's just a second to load. Okay, so welcome to the Markdown editor. Let's try our code block. Okay, that looks
maybe give it time. Yeah, I guess if we probably have to install each language one by one.
Okay.
Or maybe you could say install all the languages. I don't know. That's probably a ton of syntax highlighting.
Yeah, I think let's just do. Let's see, maybe. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's do example header 2. Lists. Okay, great. So we got kind of where we wanted very quickly for the foundation. Now let's. I would say I think that the simplest thing would be let's just have it. Let's create like I think there's a project called Runnable, which I feel bad. Okay, cool, whatever. Not easily found, so we'll just call it a runnable code block. Okay, so let's create an extension which will look at fence code. Let's say, what do we want extension to React Markdown, which will look at fenced code blocks and look for a info string of runnable and return the word true. What's up?
So do you want to run these client side or server side?
I think for now, let's just I think it should be client side just to keep things simple, right?
Cool. I like it.
let's create an extension to which we'll look at the fence code blocks and look for a info string of runnable and return the word true to the UI in place of the code block. This will also this will not be wrapped in the standard pre or code tags that a traditional fenced code block would be. Once you have written this, include this in the. Actually, I'm not sure. Well, like, can it extend it directly inline, or okay, let's try it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it might be able to just extend it directly in line.
So one of the things that I noticed when I was using Townie before was this line. The response will be in the entire val format. Is it like, I think when I was looking at it before, it was saying like that there was a diff option, and is that the is that what you were saying with
Claude 3.5 Sonnet new, that stuff. Okay, so the core thing we should talk about is that like we have a val here, which is like a couple hundred lines of code, and then we're asking Sonnet to make updates to it. And so like, what is the best way to get a large language model to update a couple hundred lines of code? So the way that you just saw is like just ask it to rewrite all that code from scratch, which is like the most common way. Language models don't really want to do that. You have to like beg them a lot of different ways, like really, like, because it's a kind of a weird thing to do, especially when the conversation gets long. It's just like a weird thing. Like, why would you need like yet another copy of this whole thing? Like, it's just a small change. Like, can't the model just wants to tell you, like a human would, like, here's the small little change you want. And so one way to get small little changes to codes is like the unified diff format. So we have instructed Townie that upon user request, it can return a diff. So you could do it right now. You could say like, make the, I don't know, make a title or change one color or something, and then say reply in diff format, and then you'll see the diff and it'll make a quick little change.
Okay, let's try this. Make the runnable block. Actually, hold on. I want to try something here. Okay, cool. So it's actually doing exactly what we wanted, right? So
yeah.
Well, kind of. Okay, cool. So make the runnable block return the word true without any kind of styling and without the code block. Well, let's inspect this really quickly and see how it's. So it's going to be a little hard to see here, but we still have a pre. Okay, so we still have a pre there. So without the pre tags around it, make the runnable block return the word. Please do this in the diff form. Is that appropriate?
Great.
Okay, let's give this a shot.
So if this change is too big, the diff might fail. And then you'll see why we don't do diffs by default. But the diff wasn't too big, so it didn't fail, which is great.
Okay, so we were able to get it to return it in a kind of sane way, and it removed the styling, but I guess the pre is probably being done by the React Markdown at the core, would be my guess. And we just, it's not something we can extend is my guess here.
It's possible.
But okay, let's see. Okay, so we've gotten it to take this to where it returns true. Okay, now let's go a step further. And let's just allow for arbitrary iframes, maybe. Is that a? I think that's probably well. We may run into like CSP issues, but there's always CSP issues. But especially here because it's like we're going to be putting it like I guess
An
this is
iframe in an iframe.
iframe and an iframe and yeah. Okay, but let's give it a shot. Okay, now instead of returning true, let's okay. Let's take this a step further. Like runnable, let's create a new language support called iframe. Or let's just do it even simpler, called HTML. And any HTML within the code block is rendered and not displayed as raw text. Okay, let's try that. Oh,
I noticed
yep.
that there is I think we're using Remark under the hood, and there is a Remark MDX. Or sorry, we're using get a flavored markdown, and then I went to that here actually. Well, I guess let's see if everything worked. It looks like it may have. Wow, that's cool.
Okay, so yeah, nice. So now we have some HTML. What happens if we click me? Oh, yay. I was like, wouldn't it be funny if it was like, congrats, I've pwned your account. Here's all your cookies. Okay. Okay, cool. So we've got basically the ability to render arbitrary HTML. Okay. Now, and then this is kind of the main thing that I wanted to test was this idea of, so just for anyone kind of watching who has not read Markdown specification documentation like I have, so this three backtick thing is called a fenced code block, and then this first line here that's that info string, and the way that the info string, and we can pull this up, common mark spec. Just in case anyone else cares. And we can go to info strings and we can zoom in. So basically, this is all you have, right? Which is the first word of the info string is typically used to specify the language of the code sample and rendered in the class attribute of the code tag. However, this spec does not mandate any particular treatment of the info string. So it is a kind of do what you want space. And this is kind of where I find it interesting. Great. Now let's add the concept of a parameter. I can't ever spell parameter. Have you found that spelling matters to prompting?
Not in Claude. Claude is smart enough to know what you mean. One thing that's actually really fun, that's an aside, is that whenever I paste a val10 prompt into a stupider model, like a llama model, it will take any typos and go and run with them. It's like, and you call it being dumb or stupid. I don't, you can play it either way. Like llama does what you say, even if it's dumb. Claude knows what you mean and will do the right thing.
Yeah, I guess one is more deterministic than the other, right?
Llama is definitely more deterministic. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true either. It's more like instructable, maybe you could call it, or more, yeah, it's more like a blind soldier who will just like, okay, like this doesn't make any sense, but like my boss is an idiot, so I'll be an idiot.
Sorry, I was like, just give me a sec. I want to type this out so that it has a better idea of what I'm trying to explain. I'm going to simplify this also a little bit. No, we want render. Okay, and then we say this way, if render equals 1, then we render the HTML. And if render equals 0, then we show the code as a normal code block would. So, and kind of the idea that I'm having here, right, is like, if you want, let's say, to create a doc, right, like you have like a markdown doc that explains mermaid, right? Like you want to put the mermaid code in for someone to view, right? But you also want to run it for them to see the output side by side, right? And so this idea of like, hey, you know, the same code can be processed in different ways. Okay, so it didn't quite.
Okay.
Let's see, what did it do? Render 1, render 0. Okay, so
Interesting.
And what's interesting also is that it used different sample code. Here it kept the button, and here it did not.
Interesting. I think maybe because you didn't keep the button.
Well, yeah, I removed it, but okay. So, okay. So
I wonder if.
Okay. So
yeah, anyway, yeah. Your instinct is just to keep going, not to like look at the code, peek at the code, and see what might be going wrong.
Well, I think that we can take a look at the code. Let's see. We can just search for render. Okay, so if language equals HTML, const render match. So it looks for render this const, and here I can just update it inline and
Yeah.
Okay. And is there there's no breakpoints, I assume?
No, you just console log debugging.
Okay. We're gonna do this.
I would also just log class name too. Yeah, log a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we're logging everything. Yeah, where did it get class name from? Let's see. Okay,
so class name is the info string.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's see. I don't think class name is the. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. But class name would not be the info string. Class name would be. I think this is probably, you're right. This is probably the issue, is that it knows how to handle the class name, but maybe in React Markdown it doesn't actually. Okay, so let's see. So okay, we did the preview. Now we look at the.
Oh, so those are server-side logs. So if you want client-side logs, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. We need let's see, inspect, and then let's put it on the bottom. Let's move it around like this. Okay, so let's see, code 15.
Which HTML? So I think you're right. It's not the info string. It's like something else.
Yeah. So if we look at the preview and we go here and we look at it, yeah. So it's pulling this class.
Interesting.
So okay. We can. I hope you don't mind me showing something else. Actually, you know what? It's probably. I'm like, it's got a lot of personal stuff on the left-hand side. I'm like, I probably shouldn't open that. And I can't ask Townie a question directly.
You can say, if you wanted to not do code, you could say like, don't write any code, just answer my question.
Okay. So let's don't write.
Or you could just ask it to debug it. You could explain what's going wrong, or this works too.
My question: how can I access the full info string of a fenced code block within React Markdown and not just the language, not just the first word that is typically. Okay, so here we go.
Cool. There we go. That's it. Hopefully.
Now, please apply that to the HTML and render equal and render parameter handling. Okay, so that we are correctly handling the full info.
Yeah, you could. You know what? You could do this one. I think you could do a diff.
Okay.
Just like use diff.
This is a diff. You know, funny story about like writing these things. I write please a lot when I talk with.
I noticed.
And I at one point during the peak of the voice assistant days read an article. Nice.
You got it.
It works.
Oh no, the other one broke.
Yeah, it's okay. We're making progress. So render one is working. Now let's see what's going on here. So we're looking at the right element. Okay, it didn't return anything. Okay, that's fine.
Let's look at the code in the markdown on the left of the. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Render 0. Okay. Well, hold on. I was just looking here to see if there's anything, but I don't think so.
I think I see maybe the issue in the HTML. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And then let's do, what was it? Was it render? Yeah, okay.
Not that one.
No, here we go.
There we go. So the language is HTML. Yeah, it shouldn't be null. Yeah.
Okay, so on line 21, instead of returning null, we should return.
I think you just have to let it go back to the fallback. So if language is HTML and there's a render string, then do the special thing. Otherwise, just like let
which is HTML and render equals 1, then we should do our special handling. Otherwise, we should allow for well, let's not say that way. If render equals 0 or is undefined, I'm trying to like phrase this correctly.
Here, I can help you out of the code much quicker. Basically, we just want to put lines 17 and 18 above the if statement, and then
17, 18.
So yeah.
Okay.
And then it should be if language is HTML and should render. Nice. And then it should just be return that div, and then yeah, that's it. Keep deleting.
Say again?
So delete the should render on line 20.
Oh, yeah, there we go. And
delete the question mark. Yeah, great. Nice.
There we go.
I think that'll do it. So then I hit preview. I think that should be good. Yes. Okay.
Well, see, and this is basically now for my blog, we can take this and we'll see. I don't know if Ghost has a HTML embed, but we can embed the val as a demonstration of exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But I think we have 20 more minutes. So do you mind if we try and make it a bit more complex?
Sure. I just want to do one quick call out.
Sure.
I think you were doing HTML rendering as like a demo of like anything can be rendered here. But I will say that if what you wanted is HTML and Markdown, then like MDX is kind of the thing. But yeah, but you're doing a different thing. You're doing like now you want to add mermaid.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think that basically, right today, if we say let's go back to that comment you made at the
You
beginning
know,
about syntax highlighting.
but
So,
before you go, maybe I would just start a new conversation. Maybe
well,
you could try it. You could try it. Yeah.
are you worried about the code length?
No, I'm worried about the conversation length, but it's pretty small. We can keep going.
Okay.
We've actually just launched a new thing where we will warn you when your conversation is too long. So forget what I said.
Okay. I think this is like a really interesting point that you raise. So a lot of how like I have been experimenting with coding with these tools is to, try and act as dumb hands on keyboard, right? And intentionally like not use my own or
Yeah,
use
yeah, yeah,
as little of my own thinking as possible to try and understand like where their limits are. Um, and mostly I've been doing this with ChatGPT by pasting back and forth. And I have frequently found that there is not a good way to like reset their thinking process or however you want to say it. Like if I write ignore absolutely everything we've discussed so far and just keep whatever I post in context next, it still doesn't work the same as starting a new conversation.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and I'm sure that there's like a good reason for that under the hood, but it's not one I've understood yet.
yeah, yeah. I know what you
um,
mean.
well, let's try. So what I was going to say was, to the comment you made at the very beginning, let's see if we can enable syntax highlighting using whatever out of the box.
Yeah,
um,
great.
so um, please add syntax highlighting for React Markdown using whatever um, whatever default libraries libraries or options are commonly used. At a minimum, please support at least JavaScript and Mermaid. Um, let's see if we can do this. So let's see. Prism syntax highlighter. Okay, and it's pulling in Mermaid. So I'm thinking it may just start rendering stuff, but we will find out in a second.
Yeah.
But if it does, I think that's still a good starting point for us. Okay, and okay, syntax highlighting. Awesome.
Whoa, that looks really good.
Runnable code, mermaid diagram. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
let me see. Yeah, how does the mermaid diagram syntax work? Is it just like
it's just
GitHub?
it's just a standard mermaid.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay, but hold on. Let's make sure that we didn't break. Or you know what? Actually, I can just do
It's
render 0.
oh my God, that was awesome.
Right. So this is exactly what I was trying to get to. Right. Is this ability right here. Right. Is that once we add parameters to these blocks, it's a very simple way of interacting with stuff. And the reason why I like this, right, is that today, we're using HTML and I guess you could say, well, Chrome renders things one way and Safari renders things another way, right? And so, even if we just share this exact val with somebody, they could see something rendered differently here, right? And that's kind of this idea of this progressive enhancement that I'm thinking of, where everything kind of being extendable on top of this is like you don't have to use Mermaid's implementation of Mermaid is what I'm getting at, right? Is that like somebody else could create their own implementation that's like less ugly. Like I don't know why Mermaid hasn't invested in like just nicer design. Like it's a great tool. I wish them all the best. I just wish that like they would hire a designer. And I think somebody will at some point, right? And when that happens, like why doesn't all this stuff stay, kind of inline and usable and whatever. So okay, so let's try the next step. So okay, now let's extend the mermaid language type to behave in the same way as we did with HTML. If we set render equals 1, then mermaid should be rendered as a diagram. If render equals 0, then we should see the mermaid code as text. What do you think, diff?
No, not for this.
Okay.
You could, but I wouldn't, because I would want it to like.
I'd be interested to understand like what your heuristic is for that.
Yeah, very clear. My heuristic is how many different sections of the code it needs to edit, because like it's bad at writing those hunk headers. It's basically it's bad at counting lines. And one person did give me a really good piece of advice, which is that we should be sending Townie numbered lines. So we should like
Yes.
like line 9 pipe 9 line 10 pipe line 10. We should like just count the lines for Claude. So we haven't tried that. That's a good idea.
Have you
We
tried?
actually have
Have you tried actually just prepending the line number to each line?
No, we haven't tried that. That's a great
So,
idea.
like something like this, right? Where it'd be like,
Exactly.
Along those lines.
Yeah, we haven't tried that yet, but it's a great. There are like dozens of ideas for how to improve it, and I can tell you if you want which one we're most excited about now. But there are a couple others.
Okay, well, yeah, you got to keep your secrets, right?
No. Happy to tell you. They're not secrets. I love just giving it away and like getting other people's secrets.
Yeah. Well, so look, I think this is exactly where I wanted to get to.
Amazing.
In terms of a demo, like if you wanted to like provide docs, right? You can now easily provide the same code. I mean, I don't know why it didn't want to do the same code, but like you could hypothetically have the same code, right? And by passing these parameters along, and the blog post I'm writing is actually one about like, I'm not like, oh, like this is the future. I'm like, I'm more like trying to say like, hey, this is a standard extension that I think we should consider. But if we agree on a syntax for these parameters that we can pass into these blocks, exactly like you were saying with observable, right? Observable knows exactly how to handle this JS and exactly how to pass this data around and all these things. Like I think they're solving a quite narrow problem, but I think that this could be a pretty broad approach of how do we extend this format in order to. This is really cool. I like where this is going. I just need to. I think I'm gonna have to actually hold on. Interesting thing you pointed out earlier. You said starting a new conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And I forget which tool I was using. I believe it was Claude Artifacts, where when you reach the end of an effective context length, it will not allow you to continue working on the artifact. And the way to do that is that you basically go to the share option, and then you say like continue, you like fork or something the artifact, and basically start another conversation with its code as the sole context. So just for myself and for anyone watching, what is the flow for this in Townie when somebody reaches this maximum conversation length or context length or whatever? How should they best proceed?
Yeah, so we just launched a feature yesterday where when we detect that happening, we'll have a little pop-up that says, this conversation is too long, press here to start a new chat with Townie about this current val. So hopefully that solves the problem. If you're detecting that, like if you for whatever reason want to start a new thread with Townie about this val, you could just go to the to right there, start new chat. Go for it. Yeah. So that's a new thread with the existing val.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, cool. It's good to know. I'm definitely going to keep working on this and see like this is already like exactly what I need to explain my concept maybe a little better to people than just my ramblings. Yeah, actually, you know what? Hold on. I want to try something here.
Write a blog post for me.
No, do not write any code, but please explain the pros and cons of extending the info string in fenced code blocks to support parameterized parameters and associated UX changes. Look at the attached code as a proof of concept of this idea. Let's see what it has, what it tells me here. Okay, so flexibility, functionality, UX, extensibility. Okay, complexity, sure. Non-standard syntax, sure. Security considerations, absolutely. You probably should not be inline rendering random HTML. Learning curve, yeah, and performance impact. Okay, I think those are pretty valid.
You know what you could do is you could say write a blog post about this and put it in as the template string for the demo in the code.
Let's try that. Write a blog post about this and put it in as the sample string in the code. Make sure to include demos of capability as part of this. As part of blog. Let's see. I think one of the things that is interesting with these, like whenever you write and then you create, etc., is that there's going to be some kind of almost like a commit graph kind of thing that's happening where people are like going back and forking from different places. And I think it'll be interesting to see how like is that going to be the case, or will the tools just get so good that like it's like main dev only, right? Like, or trunk based dev, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The version control story here is going to be really interesting.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so okay, not terrible. Okay. I mean, it's not great, but there's a reason why AI writing is not is not the most loved thing in the world.
Yeah.
I'm doing the David Perel's Rite of Passage right now, which is like a writing course, and like I'm enough of a nerd where where like every time they're like, oh, like you should do this, not that. I'm like, so I need to collect this into a bunch of prompts, right? And just include this all, be like, here's a million lines of like context of like, do this, not that. Here's 5 examples, right? And I wonder if it can actually be convinced to write in a more personal way, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Is there anything here that you think would be helpful to viewers or rewatchers later?
Nothing's coming to mind. Great chat. Glad we did it. Glad we got you something workable. And I guess we could sign off early. Just a couple minutes.
I'll leave a question for you, right? Like maybe you can Tom and ask him, right? So part of it is what we've done, right? Part of it, and to the point of what Townie and Claude had to say, is that this increases complexity for users, right? Like it be like this is much less readable than than what's up here, and so and even here, I think that ultimately Markdown is too complex for the average user. So I do think that part of my argument here is that this is only good as a storage format and not as a like a medium of interaction. And so what I do want to do is I do want to build something WYSIWYG on top of this. And so maybe Tom or somebody in the audience can suggest what editor they think would work best with an approach like this, where it's important to me that the raw representation stays actual, just raw Markdown. And I think most of the editors don't do that. Like to your point, Lexical has its nested graph that it uses. So I just think it'd be interesting if someone can suggest an editor.
I have a friend, Chet Korkos, who was one of the first engineers at Notion, and he worked on a project like this. He might have ideas for you. I think at the end of the day, it was always marked down under the hood, but it was like a Notion like WYSIWYG editor.
Yeah, that'd be great if he can dig that up and find anything. I'm actually going to also ask Townie. Let's see what it has to say. WYSIWYG editors that use Markdown as the representation. I can't spell.
Well, it's always like it doesn't have to be the representation as long as it can find its way to Markdown.
Well, yes and no, right? Because if you say yes, then like when you want to, so today we have mermaid, right? And it like makes sense, right? But if we have some kind of other representation here, so then we now need to go from the representation to some kind of mermaid renderer, and then we need to go from that representation back into Markdown. So you're going to be like layering parsers on parsers. And I think that architecturally, like that may be faster and it may be more featureful, but I don't think it's it's not the long-term architecture that I think would win. So yeah, I mean, basically, like the premise here that I have is like, if I create this, right, and I give this as it is today to somebody who has VS Code installed, right, and they open this, their Markdown parser and their Markdown renderer can understand this, right? But if they use, this val, then they get the enhanced experience, right? That's kind of where I'm trying to get it to go to.
Nice. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it. It's amazing how much I guess I need to learn also about prompting. But yeah.
Cool. See ya.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Bye.